Bob Bridge says, I wish I would have gotten the Ice Cube solo from NW. This means NWA. You know what? That's the thing, man, about Cube. Even when he left, he didn't really lack too much. And I say it all the time. I think when you talk about Death Certificate Cube from '92, and you think about NWA in '92 with Niggas for Life, if we could have had Ice Cube on Niggas for Life, that could have possibly been one of the greatest hip hop albums ever. But again, it's so crazy to even think that at that time, NWA and what they were talking about on Niggas for Life and what Cube was talking about, they were polar opposites.
Well, you
But if
see, okay.
somehow sonically that could have come together, I can't even imagine.
Well, how about this? Cube as a songwriter is so strong that he probably would have taken more of the. How about this? Because of his skill set as a writer, they would have followed his lead more on those songs. So we would have had a more content-driven album behind those beats. Which prior, I mean, Mike, that I told you, Mike, like what Niggas for Life really is the moment that Dr. Dre becomes a really great producer,
Mm-hmm.
and so that is also happening around the time that Ice Cube is becoming an all-time great MC. So that's when we missed him.
Junior Sexman says NWA was holding up Ice Cube. That's kind of what you just said. And I do agree with that to a certain degree. I think that Ice Cube, working within the confines of NWA, he's not able to, spread his wings, for lack of a better term, and become the MC that he was able to become.
How about think about this? NWA is so culturally important and significant, but Ice Cube crafted out such a legendary career that you almost really never really missed the fact that he wasn't with NWA, because the stuff that he did by himself, it was like, nah, I'm good with that.
Ice Cube leaving NWA after Straight Outta Compton, good decision or bad decision, in your opinion?
Great decision and one of the boldest moves in rap history.
Yeah, I agree.
He bet on himself, paid off in a major way.
Yep, definitely. He knew what he added to the group.
He knew who he was, Mike. He knew who he was early on.
When I look at those old Ice Cube interviews and when he was a young man and when he talked to the media, I don't think there's anybody that, like you said, knew who he was to the level that Cube did at that point. Even when you listen to Tupac do interviews, he was very enlightening in many ways, but you could tell he didn't have it all together. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of it was kind of,
together.
huh?
He told you he didn't have it all
Exactly,
together.
and he was verbalizing that too. But Cube at 19, 20, this dude was bold. He was straight to the point. Next question. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was phenomenal, actually.
No, Mike, on a lot of levels, when you look back at it, look how empowering he was.
He
Like
was.
he literally kind of like he bossed up really quick, and he bossed up like kind of like in a black way. It's like no, he ran around with the nation and the lynch mob and doing gang. I wouldn't say gangster movies, but doing movies that are depicting more of the inner city situation where he comes from, and so it's like yeah, like it got real bossy real fast. I mean, Mike, when did he leave the group? 1990? By 94, Mike, he's iconic by 94.
I mean, yeah, definitely. And even when you look at what he did in film with like Friday, and like you said, taking
like Friday's probably the moment where
betting
he
on
became
himself.
iconic. No, that's what I'm saying. Friday is probably the moment where he became iconic because like now you got Boys in the Hood and you got Friday. It's like you got the real street classic, you got the funny street classic, you got these rap classics, you got that group classic sitting back there, icon.
And like you said, he did it like a boss. Like even his deal with Priority, people don't really talk about, we don't talk about Cube in an entrepreneurial sense. Like you said, that was such a bold move to even leave NWA at that point in their I don't want to say hype, but you know what I'm saying, at that stage of their popularity and their influence. Not a lot of people would have done that. A lot of people would have sat there and rode out the next contract or signed a messed up contract because of where they were. He bet on himself, and he didn't just do it with music. Like you said, he did it with film, and his deal with Priority. I mean, this is the same Priority that gave Rockefeller their first deal for Reasonable Doubt. Same Priority that gave No Limit that 80-20 deal. So Cube was doing this shit before any of that.
I thought Master P's deal was 85-15.
I've always heard 80-20, but well, maybe. I don't know. But again, it's all about what you put up. And at that point, Ice Cube had a lot of juice. And you better believe he was calling the shots at whatever deal that Priority wanted to get to him. And he did the numbers on top of that. What did he say? I'm platinum, bitch, and I didn't have to sell out.
So, Mike, so let's go to not selling out. The script the Friday, nobody wanted to pick it up. So he made it himself for about $3 million. The first year, Friday made $18 million. $15 million profit turnaround, probably more money than he had made in the previous 3-4 years being a solo rap artist and doing like the Boys in the Hood movie. But Mike, he wasn't afraid to do it himself. Just like he wasn't afraid to leave NWA. He's like, oh, y'all don't want to make my movie? I'm going to start my own entertainment company, Cube Vision, and make the movie. Boss.
Like you said, that might be the boldest move ever in hip hop. We talking about NWA, the most. I think it's fair to say they're probably one of the most, if not the most influential hip hop group of all time at the height of their powers.
It changed everything, Mike.
And the reason why it even shows that it was no hard feelings, he didn't even diss them. You know what I'm saying? He left, he didn't even diss them. They dissed him.
They caught the wrath.
He was unbothered in his decision. Like you said, he believed in himself.
Early on.
I would love to see a biopic on Cube or just a documentary on just Cube alone, because we don't talk about Cube and the special things that he did early in hip hop.
Hey, Mike, remember the whole thing last year about not sitting down with the Democrats? And he like, what they talking about?
Man, you already know how I feel about that.
No, Mike, but Mike, look at all the things that are happening. Was he wrong?
I mean, anybody who has critical thinking skills enough to actually look at a situation without looking at what people are telling you could see what was going on. Right. And the fact that somebody who, like you said, has done so much for Black America through their films, music, and just overall just expression and what he's done sonically and musically, you want to flip on him for this?
I mean, Mike, this is a guy
for somebody who's done nothing, right?
Mike, he literally got a shirt that says "not for sale." You know what I'm saying?
So let's think about this, right? Somebody like Cube, who doesn't need it, right? He has his own career, his own legacy. He's wealthy.
He's got his own league now, Mike. He's got his own miniature basketball league. Like,
he does not have to draft up a contract for Black Americans and make it a bipartisan contract for either side to, come to terms with. He doesn't have to do that. And the fact that he did that, didn't pick any side, and all it took was for one side to pick it up, the side that you've been told you shouldn't rock with no matter what. People want to flip on Ice Cube. Anyone who feels that way, I'm sorry, man. Like, you need to really,
on your oppressor.
You need to deprogram yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all that is. But again, like I said, much respect to Cube and all of his bold moves. Again, that was another bold move. I think the only thing that, I was somewhat critical of that move last year, I wish he would have talked to more people who were championing him other than the people who were trying to debate with him. But I get it.
But he's consistent with who he is, though, Mike. He like, I don't need nobody championing for me. I'm Ice Cube. I got this.
No, I get that. No, like I said, I get it. I mean, even in the early 90s when he would go and do his media runs, he would always go to people who were, somewhat critical.
Yeah.
But, DeCarlo says, Mike, we talk a lot about Rick Ross making boss moves, but I think Cube is the one we miss all the time. I agree. I think Cube is it's an interesting thing, too, where we see all these Forbes lists and, and they always do those hip hop lists. It's certain people that you never see on the list, and it's like, come on, man. Cube's been making super boss moves for 30 years. You're telling me he's not on these lists? No, you don't want to highlight people who are doing it like he is.
Mike, I told you in 1994, just off Friday alone, Cube Vision netted $15 million profit.
There's never been a time where Cube, especially in his prime, wasn't moving units, man. Like, and he's in Cali too, and you know how Cali and Texas rock. you could eat off of those states alone. Like those are
I'm thinking,
independent hubs. Like E40, anytime he released something, he doing numbers. So Cube been doing numbers, and he been doing it on his own. When you want to say he's not on no list, yeah, right.
I mean, Mike, there's not a lot of rappers walking around with multiple multi-platinum albums.
Mm-mm.
Like those guys don't grow on trees.
Not to mention the fact that, like you said, he did it.
And they're
He
actually
did it
dope
during
rap
a time.
records. Like they're multi-platinum rap records that are actually great. Like they deserve to be multi-platinum.
I'm trying to think though. I mean, since we're talking about Cube, you had people like Too Short that were kind of doing it somewhat independent. You know what I'm saying? Like really, to an independent level out the trunk. But before Cube, were there any hip hop artists like on a big level that weren't signing these contracts to the big time labels that were probably getting, unfair deals? Because it's fair to say Q probably got a fair deal at Priority. Because he left NWA, didn't sign shit. He already had the buzz from NWA. He was Cube. You know what I'm saying? Like, so the name recognition was there. So I'm sure he was calling the shots at Priority. Was there anybody before him that we could say had that kind of leverage with record
As,
labels in hip hop?
as an MC, as a rapper,
Yeah. I
not
mean,
that I can
period.
recall. Mike. Not that I can recall. No.
Period.
Not that I can recall offhand. Like somebody's gonna have to come educate us on that.
Yeah. Because I'm trying to think. I mean, even Hammer, I mean Hammer was grinding it, out
Because
the trunk and all that. I don't know what Hammer's deals was looking like, but
but this is what I'm saying about it too, and this is what I mean about how young hip hop still is. Well, Mike, when Cube is doing this, hip hop's not even 20 years old.
right, because everybody's in their first contract at this point.
Right. So like it seems like a long time ago, but it is a long time ago, but early on for hip hop still. So very groundbreaking in a lot of ways. Like Mike, we talking about 1990. Hip hop got started in 1974. We talking about 16 years later.
Well, I mean, even if we talk about some of the first record contracts, that wasn't really happening until, let's see, like the Run DMC contracts and maybe like Houdini. But see, those were
No,
still
I
a
think
handful.
Sylvia Rone with Sugar Hill. Like
Sugar Hill was independent though.
they got signed to something by Sylvia, didn't they? Because that was kind of her start and their start, kind of making those moves through the hip hop
I
spectrum.
thought Sugar Hill Records stayed an independent record label because they were saying that Curtis Blow was the first to sign to a major label. That was Mercury Records,
I
and
feel I feel like Sylvia had her hands in early with somebody, Mike, like before '85.
because I think too,
That's
World
again.
Class Wrecking Crew was the first to sign a major deal out west.
Yeah, what's that? '83, '84.
Yeah, yeah. But even then, like I said, handful of people. And by the time Cube made the move that he made, because he never signed that contract with NWA, everybody was probably still in their first contract.
I mean, and think about this, Mike. He never really ate off NWA.
Well, he did. Like what Scottie Pippen say, he was like, I'm gonna get my time. I might be underpaid now, but yeah, I'm gonna get my time. And that's what he did. He didn't eat off of NWA, but he was able to take that leverage and really eat by himself.
No, he understood his power, even though he didn't have the money. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's an incredible story, man, and we don't talk
Yes.
about enough. And you want to talk about boss moves as an artist early? I mean, it don't get no better than Cube.
Has he ever talked about? Have you ever heard his stories about how he talked about like those early rhymes and like how they got inspired? Because he used to. So Mike, he went to Woodland Hills High School. Woodland Hills is the valley. I know because I recorded some music out there because my producer moved out there. I think my second year living out in Cali. Woodland Hills is the valley. He living in South Central LA, Mike. So every day he's going to high school and seeing all these rich white kids with money when he's pulling up on the school bus. He's literally talking about they're pulling up in their BMW convertibles and hopping out and like life is great for them. He was like, we going through hell,
Yeah.
and so that's where a lot of that came from was he was seeing the disparity every day leaving his neighborhood and then going to this school in the valley and seeing all these white kids who had it. They're only like 30, 40 minutes away. He's like, what the fuck? He's like, how this happened to my people? He's 16, he 15, 16, 17 years old. Like, how the fuck did this happen? Why is Peggy pulling up in a drop top red BMW at 16? I'm still on the school bus. We don't even know if the light's going to be on when I get home.
Cube had to have some strong people around him, though. Like for him to be that observant and to do something about it and be able to articulate all those things, he has some sort of strong foundation because he has an old soul. Seems like
Yeah,
even yeah.
yeah. But he was that way early on, Mike. But those
Early,
type
he never changed. Yeah, I mean, I think that I always say this because I feel like NWA kind of piggybacked off of Public Enemy's production style for Straight Outta Compton, but I
yes,
feel like Cube was like the Chuck D for a younger generation
yeah.
at that time.
They took from Boogie Down Productions and Public Enemy, but
And
yes.
Cube will say that Chuck D is his favorite rapper, or at least I've heard him say that before.
Tupac used to say much of the same. A lot of those guys from that era that were coming up around that time felt that way about Chuck, and rightfully so.
Chuck was saying stuff that other rappers weren't saying.
He was saying stuff they were too shook to say. There you go.
Yeah, I love it, man, and that's the Cube I like, honestly. Like when I hear Cube on, Death Certificate, that's
the
one of
nigga
my
you
favorite
love to
rappers.
hate, Mike. That's my guy. The nigga you love to hate. Yeah.
Yeah, it's but see, we're answering questions out here just by talking. Do you really see Dr. Dre making records with that guy? Like, cause they just don't, subject matter wise, they don't really mesh.
Yeah, they haven't meshed since they were kids. That's why I'm saying a lot of that rhetoric from Ice Cube coming early on, it came from a contentious place. But then he started to shape and scope it. It wasn't always like bang, 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 bang. He like, what's up with this fucking inequality?
Right. NWA wasn't ready to talk about those things. I mean, you had Express Yourself and things like that, but
Express yourself, Mike.
Huh? Yeah. But I'm saying it's clear. You know what I mean? And when you look at the direction of Niggas for Life, like on the production level, like you said, that's when Dr. Dre became a great producer. But subject wise, it's like that stuff didn't really age that well. You know what I mean?
Mike, it's high level violence and misogyny. It's missing the social commentary and rhetoric of Ice Cube.
Oh, definitely. He was the purpose of the group. If you want to talk about like just the social conscious.
The mission behind the group are the words of Ice Cube. So when you take Ice Cube away, the group doesn't have no mission. It's just dope beats and some dope rhymes.
Now you want to talk about misogyny, and I'm not one to really, harp on a lot of those things because hip hop, we could go on and on with that. But I think if I had to rate the most misogynist hip hop album of all time, it's Niggas for Life. The stuff that's said on there,
it's awful,
crazy.
I mean, Mike, there's not one record on there I could still play for my daughter, and she's almost 15.
I would never. I would never be in the car with my daughter playing any of the shit on that album.
Appetite for Destruction came on one time. I was like, let's just go ahead and skip that.
Hey, shout out to Tominette said he sent the super chat of $5. He said, big fan of the chats. Will donate every time y'all make a live. West Side Connection was my favorite album in the early 2000s. Bow Down was wild. Yeah, man.
It's a great album.
Yeah.
It's a great album. West Side Connection is one of the better albums that come out the West Coast from that era. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think, people talk about Cube and Dre. I think that the Cube and Tupac thing is a little bit more wild to me that they didn't collaborate because both of them were in film, right? Mutual acquaintances and people like Yo-Yo and stuff like that. And you would just think that where they both were mentally, that was just a collaboration waiting to happen. Even with their relationship with Scarface.
Well, so a lot of ties and common denominators. They do have a song together, Last Words on Strictly for My Niggas with Ice-T and Ice Cube.
Yeah.
So Pac actually reached out to Ice Cube early on for his second project because I think people forget this. Like, Cube precedes Pac's stardom literally only by a year or two. So Pac was actually, I think, trying to get to where Cube was. You know what the delay on Pac's first album was, right? America's Most Wanted had just dropped. And the label was telling him, like, Cube got it right now. You have to wait.
Yeah.
That's why Tupacalypse Now got delayed.
Do you think there was a level of competition between the two of them?
Possibly for Tupac because he wanted to be where Ice Cube was because, like I said, mantras are similar. No similar people. Similar themes, except for Ice Cube. I mean, when Pac is dropping Strictly for My Niggas, that's what, 93? I mean, Cube's already double, triple platinum a couple times.
Well, yeah, Cube's a legend by 93. I mean, I guess I'm thinking more so maybe 95-ish, right? Like,
but it's too late by then. That's what I'm saying because so much of a whirlwind had happened to Pac, and that's kind of when Cube had kind of left the rap sphere and ventured into film as 95-ish. You get what I'm saying? Because he doesn't pop back up really in the rap sphere till 98. After what Death Certificate's the third album, right?
Yeah.
After Death Certificate, Mike, he doesn't pop back up until '98, I think.
What? No. You got Death Certificate. You got the Predator, where the Good Days on.
Hold on, what year is that? What year is the Predator?
The Predator is '94, isn't it, y'all?
I think it's '94. So, Mike, but in '94.
And then you got West Side Connection stuff is like 95, 96.
But what I'm saying is that Mike, when he's doing the Predator, Pac is doing Me Against the World. That's when Pac is becoming an icon. But then Pac is in jail. That's what I'm saying.
I would love to have heard Cube on Me Against the World.
But first of all, he was on the previous album, but also Pac is in jail around the time when Cube is still active. When Pac got out, Cube wasn't really as active, and then Pac is gone shortly thereafter. So
I would love to have heard more work with them two together. But yeah, you're right. And especially in film too.
I would have liked to seen it on both levels, absolutely. And Mike, Last Words is, for me, Last Words is like my favorite album cut off strictly for my niggas. Like Keep Your Head Up and I Get Around are clearly the gems of that album, but Last Words is a great record.
Lethal Injection. I knew I was leaving off something. Thank you, man, from nowhere. Lethal Injection was '94.
Okay, so that's the one that's '94. So hold on. So it goes America's Most, Death Certificate, The Predator, Lethal Injection.
Yeah, unless you want to count, the EP. That shit was great though.
Do we really? Okay. We can count it. It's cute. That's fine. No. You thought it was great? You thought it was great?
Hold on. What? The EP, you know what I'm talking about? Is shit. What's wrong with me? You know what I'm saying? Kill It Will. I didn't even look it up yet.
Oh, Kill It Will? You know what Kill It Will was, though.
Kill It Will is great.
You want to know what, Mike? Does Ice Cube have the best West Coast catalog?
Who would you put over? Kendrick or something? Nah. I think Ice Cube does.
I think The Game has the best argument, but The Game doesn't have as many hip-hop classics, I think, as Cube, so I don't know.
Yeah, because when you're talking Kill It Will, you talking America's Most. You talking Death Certificate. Then you got, Lethal Injection, The Predator.
Hold on, which one was the drop-off? One of those is a drop-off, though, Mike. One of those is, I know there's America's Most and Death Certificate. I feel like...
What do y'all think was the drop-off? Because, honestly, War and Peace might be what a lot of people would say. But Lethal Injection...
I feel like Lethal Injection... I can't remember which one, but one of those just isn't as good as the other three. And I'm trying to remember which one that it is. I feel like there was just a slight drop-off. Was it The Predator?
I don't know, man. Predator had a good day on it.
Yeah, but what about the rest of the album?
Hold on. Because you know how we do it was my shit, too. That was on Lethal Injection.
Oh, you know how we do it is my shit.
Yeah, that was my shit.
Yeah, that's for everybody.
Because, The Predator had Wicked on there. You know what I'm saying? Had Good Day on there. Check Yourself was on there.
Mind, I recant that statement.
Yeah.
So hold on. So
I think all these albums just came so close together, we kind of forget. You know what I mean? But
you're right, Mike. Because Lethal Injection is '93. The Predator is '92. Death Certificate's '91. Mike, he's the first guy to crank out albums year to year to year. Mike.
He is.
Mike, America's Most is '90. Death Certificate's '91. The Predator's '92. Lethal Injection's '93.
But you know what? He's moving like an independent guy. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what you get from priority artists. Because priority back then was more of the partnership. It was like what was the name of that label that 50 and Dipset and them got in the fight? It was like Koch in the 2000s. Like priority was like Koch back then.
No, Mike, that's an accurate way of putting priority into. No, Mike, no, I'm right. There's a little drop off on Lethal Injection. There is.
I think the drop off that you might be thinking about might be War.
No, Mike. When he's coming out with War and Peace, he was already past his prime. Nobody was expecting that again. Lethal Injection was still in his prime, and it wasn't as good as the three previous albums. I do remember.
I think I think '93. It's such a weird time period where it's like you got the 80s MCs, right? And then you got the early 90s guys. And then when that Illmatic, Pac, Biggie thing comes through, 94, it's a new generation, right? And so the people in the early 90s, they're all of a sudden old. Like, you remember Tupac was calling De La Soul old. Like, these guys, y'all like a couple years apart. You know what I'm saying?
Like I'm going down Lethal Injection though, and I'm gonna tell you what, it's like it's one of those things. He was already a legend by then, and it has Bop Gun, and you know how we do it on there.
Mm-hmm.
But this isn't his best stuff. Yeah, this was the drop off of him in his prime. War and Peace was him after his prime. We weren't expecting Cube to be America's most.
I'm gonna go listen. I'm gonna go listen to Lethal Injection again. It's been a minute. I haven't listened to that.
I mean, I know for a fact, Mike, it's not touching America's Most in Death Certificate.
Well, we know that. Yeah.
I just couldn't remember if it was the Predator or Lethal Injection.
And the other thing that kind of hurt albums like that is the fact that Doggy Style dropped that year. There's a different standard, and it's a new sheriff in town type of thing. And like I've said, even with Goody Mob many a times here, it was like as much as I love Goody Mob, when they dropped World Party, that opened the door for some change in the city. And it's like when you drop, like you said, one of your weaker efforts, and then there's a Doggy Style that comes out. Okay, what's the changing of the guard?
Yeah, because Lethal Injection and Doggy Style are the same year. Quick switch.
Yeah, and not to mention that months before it, The Chronic came out. So it's like,
I mean, Mike, here, and people forget this. Here's how big Cube was. Like, The Chronic was everywhere, and like, Cube's albums were still selling comparable. Like, Dre was doing like 4, Cube was doing like 3, and Cube was doing it without help.
Yep. Yeah. And without the big songs that The Chronic had, too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because he was Ice Cube, though, Mike.
Right.